Austrian plate for their future.
Has there been any reaction to the proposal, for example, this idea of the command and control center from the migrants themselves?
Yes, they weren't very happy actually when the announcement was made. They were hoping that they would see some kind of benefit. Well, actually, they were hoping really that they would be able to either come into Britain or just get asylum here. But actually, nothing was mentioned in terms of any benefit to them at all. So actually, this morning, they, in protest, blocked the dual carriageway, the road which overlooks the migrant camp here in Calais, and police had to be called, riot police with tear gas to disperse the crowd. So, yes, evidently they are not happy with the decision today, as they were expecting that they would see some kind of benefit from today's announcement.
Can you briefly remind us what their day-to-day living conditions are like?
Well, the day-to-day living conditions are getting worse and worse. It's not a full humanitarian camp, really. It's just a camp that's supplied to by volunteers. Essentially, you've got conditions like running water with rubbish next door to the water. You've got toilets right next door to drinking water. And, you know, the aid workers there were just telling me yesterday that they are really getting quite worried about the situation now, because the camp isn't getting any smaller, it's getting bigger. So if more people arrive, the situation is not going to get any better, and they really would have liked to see, I'm sure, some kind of help from the government today.
Morgan in Calais. Within the last few hours, 3 anti-slavery activists appealing a 2-year prison sentence for belonging to what the authorities in Mauritania call a non-authorized organization have had their appeals quashed and their sentences upheld. Mauritania is one of the few countries in the world where slavery continues to flourish. Ibrahim Da Abied is the country's best-known anti-slavery campaigner and the former presidential candidate who came second in the last election. But he's been in jail since last year for his campaigning against slavery. There's been growing pressure on Mauritania to release him. One of the top advocating for his freedom is Abbas, which means the voice. Alice is its campaign director, and just shortly, a while ago, I asked her what the case against Ibrahim Da Abied was.
I think the case is a serious case against him. It seems to be that the government of Mauritania is keeping him in prison as he is leading one of the most effective anti-slavery movements in Mauritania.
And there was a court appeal that was supposed to take place today. Did it happen?
My understanding is that they're still in session.
Your campaign is calling for the EU to suspend development funding while Biram is held in prison. Is anyone listening to you?
Well, what we've seen in the last week is really astounding. 1 million people across the world have taken action, not just full on the EU, but full on a number of governments that have strong ties with Mauritania to take urgent action. We have sent that request to the Prime Minister Mogherini, to President Obama, to President Hollande and others. And our hope is that they will take interest in these people who are their voters, concern about money, that's taxpayers' money being spent on a government that is sustaining slavery to this extent.
Indeed. How much support has your campaign received from the public?
1 million people, just in 1 week.
Really?
That's what we're seeing. That's why we're very excited by the fact that this appears to be creating a new 21st century global abolitionist campaign of people who've sort of woken up for the first time through Biram's story to what's happening in Mauritania, and have woken up to what we see as the last worst bastion of slavery in the world.
So how do you translate those numbers into real change?
What we're going to try to do is to hold meetings with the key decision makers and policy makers in Brussels, in Washington, in Paris, and in cities in the Middle East where they have strong ties with Mauritania, to talk about how important it is that we see concerted action to ramp up diplomacy on President Aziz and the Mauritanian government to show that they're serious. There's been a series of statements by the EU leadership and others saying both Biram's freedom and the freedom of slaves in general is a crucial thing for their relationship with Mauritania. What we haven't seen is there being any kind of contingency on how we give aid or trade, and that's the next step that we will be requesting for. People are saying they don't want more blank checks to these slave states.
And is there any traction in you actually engaging the authorities in Mauritania? Might that be a more effective way of resolving the matter?
We have also written directly to President Aziz and have been in touch with the government in the hopes that, as you say, directly speaking to them and saying people across the world are now aware of this crisis and want action, and saying, although we recognize that there have been movement in what laws have been passed to both make slavery illegal and in the last week to make it a crime against humanity. What we're not seeing is that reflected in people's lives on the ground. People are still being sold as slaves, inheriting slavery, and the situation for this vast quantity of people continues to be the same.
At this day of the pressure group Avaz, and a quick reaction to us in Sierra Leone, the Britomad of the Gulf of this drama team was to go to the culprits immediately brought to book with the view of stopping such incidents in the future. That's from Islam Moija in Sierra Leone. Now to Samini, the hip-hop and reggae performer who's using his music to draw attention to the desperate need for clean, affordable drinking water in his home country, Ghana. One third of the population there lacks access to safe water. And to draw attention to this problem, one in two in the United States, the so-called king of African dancehall music, Samini himself performed at a benefit for a New York-based NGO helping Ghana construct and maintain processing plants which provide clean, affordable water. He's been speaking to our correspondent, Leslie Go. As an artist, I owe the people my social responsibility, and access to water is not as easy and simple for my people. We carry water on our heads from one place to a different destination just so we could get water. I'm on it as an ambassador.
And this is not the first time Samini has been a musical ambassador using his music to send a message about clean water. In 2008, to mark the United Nations World Water Day, he and another Ghanaian musician, Rocky DeWinnie, released the song Clean Water.
There's massive out there, and I have already confirmed with the Safe Water Project that I want to be on board concerning bringing water to my people in Ghana.
And the water project Samini is talking about is the Safe Water Network, a New York City non-profit organization providing money in Ghana to build safe water processing plants where unclean water is made clean and made available at low cost.
I'm proud to be part of the Safe Water family, providing access to reliable, affordable, and safe water to millions of people in Ghana.
Diseases that are in this community have reduced dramatically.
And with Samini and other musicians on board as musical ambassadors, there's every chance the Safe Water cause will attract more attention from the media, with more money from private foundations and see more investment from government. Safe Water Network Chief Executive Kurt Soder.
What better way than to get Samini the story of the need of safe water and how can we actually deliver a solution that's going to be sustainable there every day to people who need safe water.
And apart from his work with the Clean Water Campaign, Samini has turned his mind ever focused in the past to other social and political concerns. In 2007, after the discovery of a large offshore reserve of oil in Ghana, Samini decided to send out a warning to his countrymen and his fellow petrol.
When Ghana discovered crude oil, I could picture us like Saudi oil rigs.
Your song is a warning.
A wake-up call to the locals and those who are coming in the name of oil.
Samini's song, Ghana Petrol there. Now, Samini has been in the United States this summer, touring and campaigning for clean water. Being surprised, he told me, at how dangerous life can be in America if you're black, and how hard life can be here for immigrants in Ghana and elsewhere, working 2 and 3 jobs, simply and saving.
Out here, you hear about a white cop killing a black guy. Back home, you can hear about ghost theft. Out here, you hear about working 23 out of 24 hours. And then when you come home, they front and take a certain lifestyle.
Sounds like you're getting ready to write a song about the expatriate.
I need to touch on that topic. Come out here trying to preach to the people now. It's different back home, and if only you can to make it a better place for everybody. The king of African dancehall music, Samini Eni. That report from Leslie Gold. And from Gisa in Swaziland, I sent a text to say, Brother Samini, a dream for no ban, ordinary Ghanaian who's been drinking unpurified water from rivers and streams will never be the same. And that about brings us to the end of Focus on Africa for now. Our main story tonight. The Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza has been sworn in for a new 5-year term in a ceremony that was announced only shortly before it began. Abdoulaye Diallo in Guinea says, shame on Nkurunziza, even long-serving leaders like Mugabe, Museveni, and Paul Biya did not attend his so-called inauguration. Nkurunziza should realize his isolation by African leaders and quit. That's from Alhaji Sise in the Gambia. Focus on Africa is back tomorrow at 15 GMT. It's Nishat Lada's birthday. Don't say I told you. Have a good night.
You're listening to the BBC Rail Service with the latest from the BBC Proms and Daniel Barenboim.
The Proms is a perfect example of democratization of music in the best sense of the word.
The BBC World Service's prom season continues with the orchestra that brings Arab and Israeli musicians together.
It has been very often flatteringly described as an orchestra for peace. It isn't that, because if it were that, it would mean covering up the differences, whereas with Iran, we are curious to hear the differences.
Performance and discussion as Daniel Barenboim's West Eastern Divan Orchestra plays Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony.
We hope to arrive at a stage where we can respect legitimacy of the point of view of the other without agreeing with it. This is the sense of the orchestra.
The BBC Proms, Saturday at 18 and Sunday at 11 GMT.
You're at the BBC World Service, and on Science in Action today, we're going to be asking what lessons have been learned from Hurricane Katrina 10 years on. The storm and the resulting flooding devastated New Orleans, so now can measures put in place help other vulnerable parts of the world? Plus, the power of hyperspectral imaging for smart farming. Once only available to mega agriculture through satellites, well, it's now possible through cheap modified mobile phones. We'll have details after the news.
BBC News with Stuart McIntosh. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has announced his resignation and called for fresh elections. In a live televised address, he said his government had fought hard to secure a new international bailout for Greece, and it was now time for the nation to pass judgment on the deal. His party came to power in January. Britain will reopen its embassy in the Iranian capital Tehran this weekend, 4 years after it was ransacked by protesters. Iran will also reopen its embassy in London in the coming days. The French far-right National Party has expelled its founder, Jean-Marie Le Pen.